Alright, I thought this could be an interesting idea for a video. I've done this a couple of times of kind of these popular games. Talk about what went wrong in a big game last year for a specific player. And so for Aaron Rodgers, he obviously, was in a situation where, hey, the Packers win that last game of the season, they make the playoffs. I think people kind of forget that they were still right there to make the playoffs after really turning things around towards the middle of last season. So then you have this game, and let's talk about what went wrong for Rodgers, the offense as a whole, and why they weren't able to beat the Detroit Lions, who at this point had nothing to play for as they had been eliminated earlier that day. So let's start off with this play, the play you see on the screen. So the way it's going to work for Rodgers, and kind of the main thing I want to show to start off is that right away this play isn't going to work out. And that's kind of something that happened a decent amount, I thought, in this game. Listen, it was a concern all year. It was a criticism all year of the Packers was their receiving core and guys not really being able to get open consistently. Guys getting open every now and then. Certain players can make plays, but just not with consistency. So Rodgers takes a snap and, goes through his progressions, doesn't love what he sees, and even does a good job of scrambling outside the pocket to try and get something to get open. So far, this has been an actively good play from Aaron Rodgers, and you could argue this still ends up being, you could argue how good of a play it ends up being at the end, but what happens right now is A.J. Dillon has found a little bit of separation. Again, the defender who was covering him now has to move in to make sure Rodgers doesn't just walk in for a touchdown. Keep in mind, this is a third down, so obviously key play in this football game. So for Rodgers, if he can just find a way to, get the ball to Dillon, this could be a touchdown. However, you see it throws a little bit behind. Again, that's a tough play. You're throwing off balance. You're about to get, hit, all that stuff. Maybe even, Rodgers wanted Dillon to stop and Dillon kept going. Who knows what happened there. But it looks like it was just a bit of a, in a tough situation, threw it a bit behind. And this is kind of a microcosm of what went wrong in that game. I would say that for the most part, there were some tough situations Rodgers was thrust into. And in those tough situations, it worked out okay sometimes and not so great some other times. That's kind of how, a lot of that seemed to go. Like this play is another kind of perfect example of that, where again, it's going to be, Reed's going to start off going towards the offense's right on this play. Watch as he first, looks in that direction, doesn't love what he sees, and again, starts to scramble outside the pocket. But it feels like as he turns his, head towards the top of the screen, he doesn't notice that Aiden Hutchinson is fastly approaching him from behind, and he's in a dangerous situation. As you see, Rodgers just never notices Hutchinson gets there, and the ball even comes out at that point. It was ruled down, so, not the end of the world, but still, that was an 11-yard sack right there. So that's another tough play, and again, it's certainly not all Rodgers' fault. You could have argued that maybe he could have made a throw to Lazard underneath right away. He was looking somewhat in that direction. Maybe he could have done that. That was an option on the table. But at the end of the day, guys weren't getting open consistently. But also Rodgers was at times, not finding ways to make stuff happen, like on that play, actively actually making it tougher by putting yourself 11 yards further back, making it harder for your field goal kicker. There were also plays like this that just straight up weren't his fault, but still, had negative impacts where, again, it's going to be one of those, nothing gets open right away. Watch how when this play begins, nothing gets open, but the offensive line actually does a great job on this one. Look at how much time Rodgers has. An element of that is Rodgers navigating the pocket himself, but still, great work to, give him enough time to hopefully find someone who is open. And okay, A.J. Dillon open underneath. Let's just flip it to him, gain some yards. That's what Rodgers does, and A.J. Dillon just dropped it. There were a few drops in this game as well, which certainly made things more difficult, and obviously at the end of the day, people just remember the quarterback and usually just the quarterback's box score stats, and that's it. But, there were some plays that Rodgers did nothing wrong, but it still just didn't work out for whatever reason. But there were also plays like this, where the way the concept works is it's a zone coverage, cover 2 zone, and you have Allen Lazard trying to get into a gap in coverage, and this is a tough throw. Right off the bat, has to be mentioned, very difficult even on paper, because you're, especially with, it's not like Rodgers is lined up on the hash marks towards the bottom of the screen or anything. It's a difficult play. Right when this play begins, it's working out pretty well on paper. Again, it's not an easy throw to be made, but there is a window for Rodgers to try and hit it right here. So, okay, let's see what Rodgers can do. Well, as you see, Rodgers throws this one a bit too high and it wasn't able to be complete. Again, that's just a missed throw right there, in my opinion. He had a window to hit Allen Lazard and he didn't get it done. There were some examples of this in that final game as well, of Rodgers making some errors. And I kind of thought this play was really where the season kind of ended. You know, the story of the Packers in 2022, I really think was, obviously there's so many little things that go into it, but it was essentially this. Very early on, teams realized that if you play single safety deep, the coverage you see on the screen now, basically, they don't have receivers who can win on the outside. And the Packers really struggled, kind of, I don't know, a quarter of the way in to, maybe halfway through the season, they kept losing games because they couldn't figure out how to beat this coverage. And it all kind of changed once Christian Watson got healthy and became, the guy to win on the outside. But the season kind of also ended with that way a little bit because you have Watson on the outside, single safety deep. So right when this play begins, Rodgers isn't even looking anywhere else. Rodgers knows where he wants to throw the football, and again, this is what he kind of had to do. I also should mention, he did actually do his job and look off. He did it well, but it just didn't matter. Kirby Joseph knows where the ball is going. You can look off as much as you want. This is just a scheme thing of you just know the Packers don't have anyone else. You trust your other corners to win one-on-ones. What you don't trust is for, a corner covering Christian Watson to win one-on-one because that's just a tougher matchup. As you see, Joseph's able to get over it, and this ball is also, I would say that's underthrown as well, which did not help, and a bit too much air under it as well. So all those things became a microcosm that created a turnover and kind of ended the Packers' season in a way. So that's kind of what went wrong for Rodgers and the Packers. I really wouldn't say it's all on Rodgers or even majority on Rodgers. He didn't have his best day. I don't think anyone would deny that. He still made some mistakes on top of it. But for the most part, it was just a tough situation all around for Green Bay and what ended the Aaron Rodgers era and what will, probably always be his last game in Lambeau in a Packers uniform. Although, who knows? Stranger things have happened, but seems like that's going to be the case. So, those are kind of my thoughts on this. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.